Welcome back to r/LegalAdvice, where people ask questions, get advice, and we get satisfaction. If you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories.
And the first one is titled, "Brother is using common law to evict me from my own house. Help please." Hi there, really weird one here, but to cut a long story short, my brother moved in with me at the start of lockdown because he was living in hotels for some reason. By the way guys, I know my voice sounds a little bit rough today, I apologize for that, it should be better again tomorrow. Anyway, I recently found out this was because he owes around £260,000 in debt to a multitude of small businesses for various reasons. A lot of these cases have gone to high court and he is being actively pursued by bailiffs. When he moved in, he was relatively normal but vague about why he was living in hotels, etc. Then as lockdown went on, he started to get more and more obsessed with these free men on the land / common law types, which has led to some major disputes, like saying he does not have to wear a mask because he's not a subject of the crown but the Cromwellian Lord Protectorship, and trying to annex land from the fields behind our house because apparently you can claim land by throwing a hatchet at 4 corners. Well, recently the bailiffs somehow caught up with him and they were pretty nice lads. Explained everything to me, but after he said he wouldn't pay, even if he had all the money in cash, they took his car. Ever since this, my brother has been furious with me, so we started avoiding each other around the house. This weekend I went away for a mini break on the coast and came back to find all the locks have been changed and windows boarded up. Garden furniture is nowhere to be seen. I rang my brother, who basically explained as the house was unclaimed, he had made a de facto eviction of me from the house, making him the sole owner, and if I attempted to make entry, he would have every right to kill me under the provision that an Englishman's home is his castle. I am staying with my parents, which is not ideal as they should be shielding, and I went on the mini break, but when I contacted the police I was told as a tenant he has every right to change the locks. Dead confused, any help is very much appreciated. And a user in the comments said, "Your brother has committed a number of criminal offenses, criminal damage, potentially, burglary, eviction contrary to the Protection from Eviction Act from 1977. And by the way guys, in case you haven't noticed so far, this story is from LegalAdvice UK. The police were not correct because 1. How would they know whether it is a tenancy or license, and 2nd, it is obviously not a tenancy, you lived there and never intended to grant him exclusive possession and literally couldn't if you were still living there. So call them up on 101 and report that someone has evicted you out of your own home. However, it is going to be about seeing a solicitor and having him evicted if you want to do it the proper way. The courts are hearing trespasser injunctions at the moment, accelerated possessions should be easy enough. In the alternative, you could actually break the locks and force him out, but the police may need to be called given a breach of the peace might occur. As you are a displaced residential occupier, you might be entitled to use reasonable force to secure entry to the property, and he is an excluded occupier, so you can turf him out onto the street. The reasonable notice here to end his license to occupy has almost certainly elapsed. Ironically, this is the actual common law remedy of self-help, he cannot not consent to that. Obviously, that presents practical difficulties, so it may be better to get the order and send the bailiffs round and see how much they are amused by his common law crap. You would be entitled to damages, but obviously, if he has £260,000 in debt, you are not going to get any money from him. Sorry to hear that your brother has ruined happy familial memories. And guys, who needs enemies if you have siblings like this? Holy crap. And by the way guys, I'm wondering how many of my viewers have siblings and do you get along with them well? I gotta say, I'm very happy that I get along easily, very well with everybody in my family, because really I would not have time to deal with any family drama. Update to the brother story. Quick update, I'm speaking with solicitors about what I can do now and how we can get rid of him. Rang 101 and police are not exactly helping, they dragged their feet and said I would need to go to court, etc. But yeah, solicitors have told me that this won't be too hard and he should be out ASAP. Once again, thanks for all the help. And by the way guys, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you enjoy my content. Thank you so much in advance, this helps my channel tremendously and I am very grateful for your support. Either way, let's continue to the next update. Update number 3 to the brother evicting me from my own house story. Hello everyone, for those of you who have been following my little saga, I've got some great news. Back in their house and otherwise everything is still here, spent the whole day making sure and nothing has been trashed, but there's tons of Domino's pizza boxes in the kitchen. Apparently he had contacted the bank trying to access my accounts and spunked any money he had left on pizzas in celebration, so he is now both homeless and has no money. So I spoke with a solicitor who's my dad's one and he basically picked apart literally every bit of this common law bullcrap and we rang the police. Again got stonewalled with a "tenants can change the locks and you need an eviction order." Solicitor explained the situation about how he was a guest and evicted me. The response back was literally, "I'm afraid there's nothing we can do. You need to take this up with the housing authority because it is a civil matter, not a criminal one." Well, solicitor basically said police are not going to help us, so we can either go for a court order or try and get bailiffs now. Went for the second as I need him out ASAP and they said this would be very easy. So the bailiffs turn up with a locksmith. I don't exactly know what happened as me and the solicitor were waiting around the corner, but I do know the police were called and he got carted away. I assumed that would be the end of it, but he's been contacting my parents saying he is the rightful owner of the house now and that he just needed some time to get back on his feet. Well, they have basically disowned him because of this, so it looks like he has kind of effed himself. And I assume the police let him back on the street, so going to have to be wary, but I just hope he sorts off. Honestly, huge thank you to everyone and all your kind words. You've all been so helpful and what was quite possibly the scariest time of my life has now turned into a funny story that I can tell my future kids. Anyway, thanks again. And obviously guys, we all enjoy a sort of happy ending, so please let me know in the comments what you thought about this story. To be honest, there are not that many interesting stories with updates in these other legal advice subreddits, mostly because they are just much smaller, but let's just say the best legal advice subreddit aside from the main one is definitely Legal Advice UK, because they do have a few quality stories on there. And the next one is titled, "Neighbors stupidly cause themselves to be landlocked. Are we going to be legally required to share our private road?" Here is a picture of the land area. The vertical grey strip on the left side of the image is the public main road. I own the land in pink. Our private road we use to access it is entirely on our land. Surrounded by pink, denoted by our road, it has a locked gate and the sides of our land that are against roads are fenced. We have remotes for it or can open/close it from our house. And guys, here you can see the picture that OP is talking about. The neighbor used to own the land in blue and purple but sold the purple land to someone else a couple of weeks ago. They accessed their property by a gravel road on the purple land before, but the person who owns it now is planning on getting rid of that gravel road. Apparently when they sold the land, they were assuming they could start using our private driveway instead. They didn't actually check with us first. They have effectively landlocked themselves ultimately. The neighbors want to use our road, denoted in grey, and make a gravel road from our road onto their property in blue that they still own. We have had some heated discussions about it and things went downhill fast. They say that by not giving them access to our private road, we are infringing the rights of their property ownership. Now they are threatening to sue us. If they sue, is it likely that the judge would require us to let them use our road? Do we need to lawyer up? And a user in the comments said, "Going by general principles of easements and property transfers, when Blue severed his parcel into blue and purple, he should have reserved an easement across purple. You have no legal relationship with Blue and no duty to provide Blue with access. That Blue did not check with you for permission first is not your problem. An easement is a burden on title. A parcel of land carrying an easement is, at least in theory, reduced in value to some extent. Thus, a neighboring landowner with whom you have no legal relationship cannot impose a burden on your land. Something you do has to give rise to the easement. I cannot imagine your neighbor having any recourse against you whatsoever. If he were the purple guy and sold off the blue portion to a third party, that party could claim an easement by implication or by necessity against purple. Court assumes that the purchaser wouldn't have made the purchase without assuming he would have access. It is a little different in Blue's case. He may or may not be able to claim an easement against purple. Against you, cannot see it. Don't worry about an attorney unless he sues you. If you decide to allow him access or reach some kind of settlement, make sure to use a written lease that shows that he has your permission to use the access. You want it in writing. He may have no intention of attempting to gain an easement by prescription, and your state's laws not allow it under these conditions. But a writing is cheap to do and defeats any claim of easement by prescription. Prescriptive easement is when you are unaware or ignore your neighbor using your land for a long period of time, such that he can later claim a right to use it indefinitely. Giving explicit permission to use the land defeats this, since it shows you were aware of and not ignoring your rights. Google MN easement by necessity and look at the top unsponsored link. I would paste the link, but my browser is making it unintelligible. Anyway, it is a link to a PDF that appears to discuss easements in MN. I cannot vouch for it since I'm not Barrett in MN, but it appears to cover the ground. Update to the landlocked neighbor's story. Yesterday, Sunday, around noon, the purple landowners finished fencing in their property. My neighbors came home at about 3 PM and rang at the gate several times. I was advised by you guys as well as my lawyer to not let them in my gate even once, as that would set a precedent of them being allowed to use it, so I ignored the ringing. Eventually, the husband got out of the car and walked around to the other side of my property, which is not yet fenced in. He used that to get to my house and knocked on the door. I answered and told him I will not allow him to use my gate and to leave my property. He told me he would not leave until I opened the gate so his wife could drive the car through. I said I would not do so and threatened to call the police. He walked left and went back to the car. Then they started ringing the gate again. I looked out the window and they had a police officer with them. I went to the gate and informed the police officer that this is my property and I will not allow them to drive on it. I said that they have no legal right to access my property. Then I walked back to the house. After a couple of minutes, the police officer walked around to get onto my land and to the house and knocked at the door. He said that because their land is landlocked, I need to allow them to use my road until another solution can be figured out, and I cannot just deny them access to their property. I called my lawyer, who spoke with the police officer on the phone. The police officer acknowledged that he cannot force me to let them drive on my property, but that he strongly encourages me to work this out with my neighbors in a civil manner. He left and the neighbors left their car in front of my gate, walked around to the unfenced part of my land, walked across my yard and onto their own property. I called my lawyer. We reported them for trespassing today. They left their car there until about 10 AM this morning. Tonight I was visited by the sheriff. He told me very short and sweet that I cannot deny my neighbors access to their property via an established road. He said I better not get another call. From this point forward, you will allow them to get to and from their property and will not lock them out or in. And then he walked away, called the lawyer. I am meeting with the lawyer in the morning. I am planning to ask her the following questions. Number 1. Is there a point where I should give in to a police officer's request that I let them use my road? Number 2. If they block my gate again, can I have their car towed? The way they parked it, I would not have been able to leave my property via the gate. They were parked on my land at the time, not on the public road. If anyone has any thoughts on these, I am all ears. Thank you. Final update to the landlocked neighbor's story. I posted here for advice a while back and received some excellent, some funny and some conflicting advice from all of you. The overwhelming advice was to get a lawyer, which I did. I explained the situation and that I had posted here, as well as the many topics you all prompted me to read up on, which was very helpful. While my lawyer seemed pleased with your advice to me, he also urged me to immediately stop publicly posting about the situation, which I did and which I see from my many messages has disappointed all of you. First things first, everything worked out in my favor. My wife was upset by the entire situation and especially concerned with our children, and she got involved as well. She spoke with some friends who were able to get her in touch with the local city council. They could not explicitly do anything direct to help us, but did get us in touch with some of the right people to discuss our situation. One of the most important results from these connections was learning that the sheriff who we spoke to was actually a deputy who was acting on the sheriff's behalf. We were able to meet with the actual sheriff. He did agree that we should be more open to compromise, but was much more willing to admit that we had no immediate legal reason to do so and no interest in forcing us to. My lawyer made a key point of the fact, I used the term loosely, that if the neighbors require an easement to access their land, they should do so with the land they sold and not with unrelated land. After a lot of back and forth, but no court proceedings luckily, with the other party, their attention was refocused on the buyer of their land. Funnily enough, it is a small world, and I ended up meeting the buyer who was in my lawyer's office for a consultation with one of his partners. He ended up needing to get a different lawyer, since I already had a lawyer from the firm as I understand it, but we did keep in contact to some extent. Now, some speculation, we believe that the reason the neighbors didn't bother us for a while was their finances. Their lawyer was happy to keep pushing as long as he was getting paid, but when money ran dry, he lost interest. Due, we believe, to those financial problems, as well as their inability to find a quick solution, the neighbors ultimately moved into town and lived with family there for several months. The neighbor on the other side gave them one-time access with a moving truck. Their lawyer had been showing up with them, but was gone at that time, which is another reason I suspect major money issues. In the fall, the situation picked up again with contact from a new lawyer this time. This new lawyer requested a meeting with us, and our lawyer, of course, he requested that we consider buying their property to resolve the issue. We initially said no, they offered it to the owner on the other side, they said no, they sweetened the pot. Eventually the price was right and my wife and I had developed an interest in more land. We discussed the terms and then decided against it. They went a little cheaper again and we purchased their land. I nearly posted an update once the purchase was complete, but there was an additional interesting detail that came out of the woodwork and brought new legal questions. The neighbors had used their land and home as collateral for an informal loan, and the person who lent to them wanted the property when they failed to repay him. He came after us, and the outcome of this was that they are the ones who failed their end of the contract, so his problem was with the neighbors and not with us. This is definitely a sideline from the original situation, but caused a delay in my ability to update. As of today, my wife and I are out of a substantial amount of money due to legal fees, which it turned out was not worth going after from the neighbors. There is also bad news in that the home on that property was essentially worth even less than we thought, and there were major issues beyond the land itself: septic tank failure, leaking oil tank, etc. Those expenses were slightly mitigated by insurance, but we are out a good sum. We also had a hard time combining the plots, which was legally desirable to build anything that straddled the two property lines. However, the plots are now combined into one large plot. The good is that the neighbors are no longer an issue for us, and by this summer their property should be in good shape to use for a new project of our own. On one hand, I will say this: the little chunk of land was definitely not worth the time and stress involved in this process, nor the money. However, the outcome was positive for our family, for which there is no dollar value, and it is all over with now. My sincere thanks to everyone who offered advice. There are far too many of you to thank individually, but please know that I appreciated everyone's contributions, and I hope you are all still around to read my much delayed resolution.
And guys, unfortunately we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.